The Texas coast is special to me, and my family has made countless memories there. This spring, it's time for you to do the same in Port Aransas. It's a place where family traditions naturally unfold, and you'll find beauty in the island views while taking time to relax between adventures. Just one visit, and you'll see why generations of Texans have anchored their traditions to the island life. Start your new favorite family tradition in Port Aransas, Texas. Plan your visit to Houston's beach at visitportaransas.com. This summer, let the fun begin at the Village School. Their summer camp is designed specifically for rising PK3 through 8th graders. Their camp offers themed weeks like arts, sports, STEAM learning, and more. And parents, they have flexible hours with early drop-off and late pickups because they know you're not on summer vacation. Lunch is included daily, so all your child needs to do is bring their excitement. Don't let summer slip away. Join the fun and make new friends today. Learn more at thevillageschool.com/summer. Today on CityCast Houston, it's Friday, so we're recapping the stories that impacted us in H-Town. Joining me is breaking news reporter for the Texas Newsroom, Lucio Vasquez. It's Friday, March 21st. I'm Raheel Ramzanali, and here's what Houston's talking about. Lucio, what's up, man? Welcome back into CityCast Houston and a new title, breaking news reporter for the Texas Newsroom. How about that, man? Congratulations.
I really appreciate that, and I'm really happy to be back. I know it's been a minute, but definitely happy to chat with you about Houston news and maybe even some statewide news.
Yeah, there is a lot happening right now across the city of Houston and Texas. But I want to take a moment here because it has been 5 years since the pandemic started. We lost so many people, so many lives were impacted. You know, Houston changed a lot. Just thinking back and reflecting on it, what do you remember and what will you always remember from the pandemic starting?
Gosh, I think at that point I was working in the newsroom at Houston Public Media, my former publication now, as a part-time photographer. I wasn't even a full-on journalist at that point. And I remember, I remember sitting in that newsroom and just watching it kind of progress day by day, where the conversations became a lot more dire and bleak, right? And then suddenly, the lockdown happened and it went 0 to 100. Suddenly I had a mask on and I was photographing one of the first testing sites in Houston. It was a very surreal time to be at least dipping my toe into journalism, not fully in the realm just yet, but still seeing that inside look of like how a newsroom was operating in such an unprecedented time.
I think dire is such a great word in terms of just like capturing the energy, right? Like we all started with this lockdown and across the city of Houston and surrounding areas, everyone was like, yeah, we got this. We're going to beat it. We're going to flatten the curve. And then, 1 month turned into two turned to three turned into a year and a half. And it just, it just was scary. We lost a lot of people. And, I'm thinking about also how it impacted our areas. When you think about school districts right now, right, they got so much federal funding and those budgets were, increased and new roles were added. And now so many districts are dealing with budget deficits because of the federal funding from the COVID/pandemic relief dollars now, ending and have ended, Now I'm thinking about that as well, like the impact for so many services.
Oh, yeah. And honestly, also the vaccination rates. I remember whenever the pandemic came around and, the Pfizer, Moderna, Johnson & Johnson vaccines came out, I believe in middle 2021. I forget the exact timeline at this point. But, people were skeptical. And so vaccination rates since the pandemic have gone down. And now we're seeing the repercussions of those rates being reduced. We have measles, a disease that hasn't been an issue really in a very long time. Popping up.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if that's the cause because measles started spreading from the Mennonite community. And, that community is just historically not a high vaccinated rate community from my understanding. So it could be a mix of both, but yeah, there's a lot of consequences. And I definitely wanted to reflect on that on the 5-year anniversary of us entering the lockdown. And again, all the people that we lost, all the lives that were impacted, we're thinking about everyone. It was scary. And it's something that we should never forget, Lucio. As I mentioned,
Mm.
you're covering a lot of breaking news across the state of Texas. And one story this week that was catching all the headlines and all the discussions was about the midwife in the Houston area. Tell me what happened with this.
Yeah, so it's been an ongoing saga this week, but basically a Houston area midwife, a clinic employee, and a nurse practitioner were all arrested as part of an investigation from the Texas AG's office into illegal abortions in Texas. The midwife that you spoke about was one of the first arrests. Her name is Maria Rojas. She's a 48-year-old midwife operating at 3 Houston area clinics. She's accused of illegally performing abortions on 2 counts. And so each one of those counts is a second-degree felony. She could face up to 20 years for each of those 2 counts. And she's also accused of practicing medicine without a license. And again, she is one of 3 people who've been arrested. The clinic employee, his name is Jose Lay. He's accused of basically helping perform one of these abortions. So
Oh,
he's
wow.
facing similar charges. And then that nurse practitioner seemingly kind of got looped in as more, I guess, collateral damage. It doesn't
Yeah.
seem that he's been accused of aiding in these abortions, but he is accused of practicing medicine without a license.
Okay, tell me more about quote unquote Dr. Rojas, right? Because my understanding is that, as you mentioned, she is practicing without a license. So she's really not a doctor and was
Mhm.
giving medical advice to patients.
Mhm.
Like, give me more information on her and what was happening at these clinics.
Yeah, and I will say the information is still a little bit sparse, right? What we do know is mostly from court documents, and they tell a kind of a one-sided story, right? These are all allegations, right? But according to these allegations, Maria Rojas would essentially perform these illegal abortions in 3 Houston area
Oh,
clinics. One
man.
was in Waller, one was in Cypress, and the other in Spring. And she is also accused of, again, practicing medicine without a license, but also hiring people to perform, medical procedures without a license. But again, these are all allegations. I've reached out to these clinics. I have not gotten a response. We haven't been able to speak with any of the people who've been accused of these alleged crimes, right?
Mhm.
So again, we're getting a one-sided story from the AG's office, essentially.
Yeah, so the Attorney General's office started investigating this claim. How did this all come about? Like, was there one patient? Was there a couple of patients that, filed this complaint? What happened?
So the AG's office said that they basically got one complaint about these clinics and about Maria Rojas, and that spawned an investigation. Although court documents don't point to any other evidence being found in that investigation, court documents have only laid out that one complaint, and that complaint was basically amounting to someone saying, "Hey, they're performing abortions like right now at that clinic."
Okay, so it was one complaint that started all this, and it took a while to investigate all of this. The charges were filed. Now, tell me about the patients. Any criminal charges there?
That's a great question. The answer is no. In Texas, we have basically 3 overlapping laws in relation to abortion. Obviously, in 2021, we had the first law that was passed that essentially banned abortion, I believe, after 6 weeks, and also created exceptions for the mother whenever her life is at risk, but it did not create exceptions for rape or incest. So that's one piece of the puzzle. And then we have another law that essentially allowed people to basically act as bounty hunters for abortion providers. Hypothetically speaking, if a provider after this law went into place uh, helped someone get an abortion, another person could then report that provider and then get a bounty of, I believe, $10,000. Right.
Yeah.
Then we have another law that then outlawed providing abortions entirely, but that was more of a quote trigger law that hinged on whether or not Roe v. Wade was overturned, which then later in June, I believe, of
Mhm.
2022, it was. And so then now we have the abortion landscape, if you will, of Texas as of right now, in which abortion is basically nearly completely banned.
Yeah, it's nearly completely banned. And this is where I want to zoom out a little bit because beyond the headlines, a lot of people were talking about this story. This is scary on so many levels because now I'm thinking about women who do want to get an abortion or do want to seek help when it comes to a pregnancy. If they don't have a place to go, they're going to these alleged unlicensed professionals, right? Because again, these are allegations right now. We'll see what happens. But from this moment, let's just go with they are unlicensed professionals, right? And that's where they turn to. It can be so dangerous, right? And it can be a scary situation. That is my big takeaway in this.
Yeah, and on that note, I think it's important to note there was a study in 2024, so last year, by the Gender Equity Policy Institute. According to that study, from 2019 to 2022, and that's before and after the ban went into full effect, the state's maternal mortality rate shot up by 56%, and that's compared to just 11% increase nationwide. So we are seeing some
Wow.
impacts here in Texas. Now, of course, there are some other aspects of why that might be. Of course, obviously in 2020, the pandemic hit. So there are other factors at play. But, I think it's important to note that, again, this is a long-standing argument from critics of the ban in which, like you just said, removing access to safe procedures could in turn then make folks turn to perhaps unsafe avenues of abortion. As of this taping, also, the three clinics that Maria Rojas is alleged to have performed these abortions at, Ken Paxton says that he got a temporary restraining order against these clinics. And so these clinics, as of now, have been closed.
Yeah, thank you for that update, Lucio. This is a story that we'll definitely be watching as it progresses and we learn more. Bryan, Texas is the place to be, and with 3 fun festivals over the next 3 months, you have a lot of reasons to visit. Keep the rodeo vibes going with the Big Barn Dance Music Festival from March 27th through the 29th, featuring some of the best songwriters and pickers in country, bluegrass, and Americana. You'll be dancing in your boots all weekend long. Then in April, it's a celebration of the blooming season with Messina Hops Wine and Roses Fest on April 26th. This family-friendly festival celebrates springtime and good wine. And then on May 17th, the Troubadour Festival is bringing the best of country music to life with chart-topping artists and award-winning Texas barbecue, all in one festival. And don't miss a special free concert to kick off your Troubadour Festival weekend on Friday, May 16th in historic downtown Bryan. Check out destinationbryan.com right now to plan your festival experience. Enjoying art during this perfect Houston spring weather is one of my favorite things to do living here, and you can do the same at the Bayou City Art Festival in downtown Houston, Saturday, March 29th through Sunday, March 30th. The Bayou City Art Festival is going to transform downtown Houston into a lively outdoor gallery and interactive art event as 250 different artists showcase their work. And if the art and weather aren't enough, there's going to be live entertainment stages, food trucks, a craft beer and wine garden, a VIP hospitality lounge, and more. They'll also have art to purchase for all price levels. I love taking in all of this creativity while my kids enjoy the interactive art activities, all with the downtown skyline as our backdrop. Online early bird tickets are just $18 for adults and $5 for children 5 to 12 years old. Get them at BayouCityArtFestival.com right now. That's BayouCityArtFestival.com. Okay, I want to get to my biggest story, and this is a scary one because our neighbors up to the north, they're dealing with a fast spreading and pretty unpredictable forest fire right now. Yeah, we normally don't get forest fires in this area, but the Pauline Road fire started midweek in San Jacinto County, right inside the Sam Houston National Forest. Now, conditions have been dry, and because it is so gusty and windy right now, a lot of areas have been under this red flag warning, which basically means the conditions are very favorable for wildfires. And you look at that area, I know a lot of us have driven through going on 45 north. It is dense with trees. There is no cause right now on how this fire started, and crews are working to contain it. As of this taping, it was about
Mm.
20% contained, and there have been thousands of acres already burnt. Luckily, no structures have been damaged. There are evacuations right now happening for people who live in the area. But Lucio, this is so scary. And of course, we've seen fires in the headlines on the West Coast in LA, and we've seen it here locally in Texas. Remember the Bastrop fires about a decade ago, but in our area, it's rare.
It is, and I think, the amount of times I've said, "Oh, in the Houston area, it's so rare." In reaction to, like, say, a tornado. You remember when that happened a few years ago in the
Yeah.
Pasadena Deer Park area? So I feel like, if I had a nickel for every time I said that, I could retire right now.
Yeah,
It's
you're right.
concerning, absolutely, and heck, even I believe last week we were seeing wildfires in I think Central Texas. I believe there were a couple that popped up in the Panhandle. And just a year ago as well, I believe we had the largest wildfire in Texas history up in the Panhandle. So it's, the state is very dry. And I believe last I checked at the U.S. Drought Monitor, that data is showing that a lot of Texas is at least abnormally dry to,
Hmm.
extremely dry, right? So it is concerning to see it so close to home.
Yeah, shout out to all the firefighters, Lucio, and everyone that's working to contain this fire because it is scary. And, you just go outside. It is windy, it is gusty, it is dry, as you mentioned. The state has been historically dry. And yeah, I'm so like heartbroken to see that happen here to the north of us. And, hopefully they contain it, but definitely scary, scary, scary stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Lucio, let's get to our most overlooked stories. What do you got for me?
Yeah, my most overlooked story, and not to continue the trend on depressing stories, but I have one.
Lucio, not to cut you off, but my next story is gonna wrap all this together. So,
Oh, good,
keep
yeah.
going, keep going. Yeah,
well,
it's
well, my story is in relation to Bark, basically the city of Houston's animal shelter.
Mhm.
So back a few weeks ago, they announced that they were shortening their rescue notice period from 48 to 24 hours, basically shortening the amount of time in which an animal could be euthanized, right?
Oh wow.
And the organization is basically contemplating potentially restructuring in order to basically help with this, because for years now, before the pandemic, and then I believe the pandemic exacerbated the issue, the animal shelter has just been at capacity, and animals entering the facility have either not been adopted at as high of rates as maybe they'd like, or what have you. Maybe there's more animals being dropped off. Whatever the reason, it seems that the organization is kind of buckling under the weight.
Mhm.
So they're basically looking at other avenues of revenue. Again, this is all very preliminary and very early on,
Yeah.
but I think I kind of want to just bring it up just because I believe it would be important to just to say, hey, if you have any kind of interest in an animal, a dog, cat, check out Bark, because the price wise for an animal is very accessible, and they could definitely use the help.
Yeah, this is so sad to see, as you mentioned, that, rescue notice period going down. They're also not publicly posting the list of animals that are facing euthanasia right now. So
Mm,
that's also a big thing for, a lot of organizations that are fostering these animals. So they don't even have access to the list anymore. And going back to funding, because they are looking for new revenue, as you mentioned, but an analysis in 2023 by Bark found that the shelter received far less funding per capita than other cities in Texas. So they have a budget of less than $16 million for a city that has 2.3 million people. And with the city already dealing with a budget crisis, facing a deficit, they have to kind of just figure out how to make more money. And by the way, those numbers come from Houston Public Media. So this is a sad situation and something that I don't think is going to get fixed anytime soon because of just how many people that are here. And I don't want to put everyone under the same umbrella, but there are a lot of unresponsible pet owners who will get a dog, who will get a cat and say, yeah, this is for me. And a few days later, they're like, I can't do this. and they'll just
Mhm.
drop them off to bark, right? I know I'm generalizing here, but that is a huge thing. Like, be a responsible pet owner, make sure that you can handle a pet. And if you can, go adopt right now. Like, they need help because a lot of these animals, unfortunately, just will not make it.
I do want to clarify also that the rescue notice period shortening from 48 to 24 hours, that's not the total amount of time that those animals are there. That, I believe the leadership is saying that in order to be moved on to the euthanasia list, they've often been at the facility for up to 15 days. So
Mm.
I do want to clarify that the situation isn't as dire as animals entering the facility in 24 hours. They're no longer among us, right? But I will say it is certainly not getting better.
No, it's not. It's definitely not. Okay, I told you my story is just gonna capture all of this. As you mentioned, it was another sad story, but Houston was named one of the most unhappy cities in the nation. So there you go, Lucio. We're just gonna continue this trend.
I'm glad I can provide this public service of just being incredibly depressing with you for 30 minutes.
No, no. These are important stories that we have to talk about, unfortunately. But Wallet Hub did this study and ranked 182 cities in terms of happiness across the nation. Lucio, where do you think we came in as a city?
I think we're probably like the bottom 15.
We weren't bottom 15. We actually came in at 151, but still, that means we're a pretty unhappy city in the nation. And yeah, there was another study as well done, and we came in the bottom 10 of that one. Like,
Yeesh.
there were 90 in that list, and we were 81. So this is consistent. We are an unhappy city. Like, Lucio, are people getting pulled in the middle of summer while stuck in rush hour traffic? Like, is that when these people are reaching out to us?
To be honest, I feel like that's just at any given moment you're stuck in rush hour traffic here in Houston. So it makes
Yeah,
sense.
so true. So true. Do you agree with this?
Houston has been through so much, right? It's a very quirky city, and I love the city. That being said, right, like, as someone who values public transit as a concept, the amount of highways that we have in Houston, the amount of, like, it's very much a driving centric city. And so it's not very walkable at the moment. Also at the same time, like, we're at a budget deficit, a major budget like crisis for the most part for the city. And we also deal with hurricanes. We also, like, natural disasters is we're basically the epicenter of natural disasters. And
Mhm.
then, like, we're even dealing with ones that we didn't think we would have to
Yeah.
encounter, right? Like, we're just now talking about wildfires being very close to home. We mentioned the tornadoes a few years ago. Like,
The derecho last year,
yes,
like, that
yes.
came
Like,
out of nowhere, right? Yeah.
so, I mean, Houston, it's a very trauma filled city. And, we're always saying, like, oh, Houston's strong. But it's also like, that Houston strong comes from that very strong trauma bond that we
Yeah.
have with the city. And sometimes it can be a lot.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought those environmental factors up because we came in at 170 out of 182 cities. That means we were in the bottom when it comes to community and environment rank. So that is a very important one right there. Also, when it comes to emotional and physical well-being, like just feeling good, we came in at 128. So not a good number, right? So all of these factors lead up to us being an unhappy city. But I will say, when things are going great, like right now, weather is nice, it is enjoyable. It's a pretty damn good city. It is a
It's
damn good
nice.
city,
Yeah.
but there's still a lot of flaws. We talked about a lot of these flaws on yesterday's episode, where if you had $1 billion, what would you do to improve the city of Houston? While it was a fun concept, there are a lot of flaws being pointed out with the city. And that's just to say that you can love a city, but you can also expect more and you can want
Yes.
it to improve and become the best city possible.
I think loving anything is accepting it for its true self, right?
Hmm.
If you love Houston, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to have rose colored glasses, right? I love Houston, but I can also acknowledge, yeah, this is not a perfect city. But I love it to the point where I want it to become as perfect as possible. I want it to be better. I want it to be able to accommodate every
Yeah.
community member, regardless of status, regardless of zip code, right? And
Hmm.
so I think, again, unfortunately, I'm not super surprised by the ranking, but I have high hopes. Maybe in the future we'll start to rise among the ranks. Quick question, actually. What's number one?
Lucio, that's a great question. It was Fremont, California. That was number one, followed by San Jose, number two, and Irvine, number three. So all California cities in top three.
So I guess we have to mass exodus back to California now. It seems really happy over there.
Trust me when I say this, you've never experienced anything like Meow Wolf before, and nothing I say is going to prepare you for just how incredible Meow Wolf radio tape is, but I'll try. You start by walking into a community radio station, and from there, ordinary objects take you into a mind-bending world where art, sound, and storytelling collide. I mean, over 60 local artists have helped create this experience, and there's truly nothing like it. The best part, Meow Wolf is fun for everyone, and it's why I recommend it to all of my friends and family, and now you. Plus, there's always something new and dynamic happening there, so you can make it a daytime adventure or an adult-only evening. Experience why I always leave Meow Wolf with a creative buzz and an appreciation for the out of the ordinary by buying your tickets at meowwolf.com/visit/Houston. One final tip, don't look at pictures online of what Meow Wolf has in store. Just go in and be ready to have your frequency changed. I love the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo, but parking at the rodeo is a hassle. So here's a tip to make your trip there stress-free. All you need to do is make downtown Houston your starting point and jump on the Metro's Red Line, aka the Rodeo Rail. It's so much easier than driving around in traffic by NRG Stadium looking for that perfect parking spot. And make the experience even better by coming to downtown early and exploring what downtown Houston has to offer. From getting a bite at world-class restaurants to grabbing a drink at one of the many hotspots. While you're there, you'll find really helpful Texas-sized rodeo signs guiding you to the nearest light rail where you jump on the red line. And if that's not enough, there's even going to be pop-up rodeo performances along the rodeo rail featuring live music with the next generation of rodeo superstars. To learn more about getting to the rodeo from downtown, text Downtown Rodeo to 56512. That's Downtown Rodeo to 56512. Downtown Houston is H-Town's original neighborhood, and now it's your starting point for the rodeo. Downtown Houston, get energized and revived. All right, Lucio, let's end this on a moment of joy. It has been a long week. So what made you happy this week?
So my moment of joy is a pretty personal one. It's basically just me reflecting on the fact that I have this new job.
Yeah.
As you mentioned earlier, I'm a breaking news reporter for the Texas Newsroom. I want to explain what that is just a little bit. So I used to work at Houston Public Media. That's an NPR affiliate in Houston. The Texas Newsroom is basically a collaboration between all of the NPR affiliates in Texas. And I'm really happy. I love my team. And I've long admired the work that they've done and long admired the work that other cities have done in the NPR network, right? And so to be able to work with these folks now, it's been about a month now or so since I started. I feel very blessed and very happy to be where I am. And also, I am still working, not as hand in hand, but I'm still working with the folks at Houston Public Media. And so it's nice to, it's nice to still have them in my network. So
that's awesome to hear, man. There's no better feeling than working on a great team. I always say, I love working on the CityCast Houston team. I have a great team, and it just makes life so much easier, and you can just do more fulfilling work. So I'm so happy for you, man, and we're going to be following all your reporting. And by the way, I've dropped a link to Lucio's profile so you can see all of his stories as they publish throughout the week. So please support Lucio. He's doing a lot of important work and covering breaking news across the state of Texas, and of course, still covering stories here in the city of Houston. So I'm so happy for you, man.
I appreciate that. Thank you, man.
All right, Lucio, I'm going to get to my moment of joy. And after 9 months, CityCast Houston and CityCast Nashville guests Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams are finally back home after being stranded on the International Space Station for almost 9 months
Mm.
when a routine test flight didn't go as planned and they got stuck up there. While they were up there, they actually joined CityCast Nashville and talked to him about this. Butch did. He's from that area, but now lives here, of course, NASA being here. So it was cool to hear from them. But yeah, they're finally back home. And the first stop they made after landing on Earth, you know where they went? H-Town, because NASA's right here.
Yeah, I cannot even fathom being up there for that long. It must be just first off terrifying, to like look
Yeah.
out the window and just see like darkness and just a giant orb like that is the Earth, right?
Yeah.
Very like existential, and I won't go down that route because I'll talk to my therapist as opposed to you. But I think, I mean, sure they were working, right?
Yeah, they were working, they were doing spacewalks. And, as I was reading a lot of stories, one quote that stood out, and I'm just going to paraphrase this, but, one person said that basically as an astronaut, you go up there, you focus on your work, thinking that you're going to be blessed to stay up there as long as possible. So
mm,
astronauts view it a little different. Like you get to do something that not many people in the history of mankind have done. And even though you're up there for 9 months, it is still an amazing thing, right? And yeah, but it's still scary. 9 months. I was reflecting on this as well.
mm.
My goal is to go to space. I always wanted to be an astronaut. I just wasn't smart enough, and now I'm too old. I don't think I can pass the physical, especially with 2 knee surgeries in the last 6 months. But just being up there for a month would be incredible. But at what point do you get tired of it, right? Because you're not
Yeah, that's what
like
I'm
it's
saying. Yeah,
different. You have no gravity. Things are just not the same, obviously.
it's probably like such a shock to the system to come
Mhm.
back after such a long
Oh yeah.
time. I mean, again, like, they're built different.
Hmm.
They're training, probably excruciating a number of hours in order to be prepared for this, right?
Yeah.
Um, as someone who is working from home, I, I perform improv, right? Like I'm a journalist. I would be losing my mind genuinely. And
Yeah.
so, kudos to them to like keeping their cool because again, like, this is also a job in which, like, if something goes wrong, the stakes are incredibly high, and that's it. That's anxiety.
That's it right there. It is. And that's how they got up there, by the way, is because, things went wrong. They went up there in the Boeing Starliner, and then, NASA didn't feel comfortable bringing them back on the Boeing Starliner after that ship had some issues. And then SpaceX, which is a competitor, ended up bringing them back home 9 months later. So, there are going to be challenges, by the way, as we privatize space. But, this is something that will, I think, get us one step closer to having more space journeys, which is pretty incredible. So, you live and you learn, but yeah, glad that they are back home. And by the way, if you want to hear that interview, I've linked it in our show notes and you can kind of understand what Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams were going through as they were stuck in space and what they missed about home. So definitely check out that episode. Lucio, thank you so much for joining us. And thank you so much for talking about these important stories.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
That was Lucio Vasquez of the Texas Newsroom. All the stories we talked about are linked in our show notes. And while you're in the show notes, please subscribe to our daily newsletter, Hey Houston, for even more news, happenings, and events around H-Town. Before we wrap up for the week, please take a moment to share this episode on your social media so other Houstonians can check out CityCast Houston. Also, drop us a rating and review wherever you're listening right now. It takes less than 15 seconds to do. And of course, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, so we show up in your feed every morning. Thanks. That will do it for this week here on CityCast Houston. Our producers this week were Selena C.A. Reynolds, Elizabeth Kama, and of course, Carleon Jones. Our newsletter editors are Natalia Aldana, Selena C.A. Reynolds, and Brooke Lewis. Our executive producer is Laura Isensee, and I'm your host, Raheel Ramzanali. Our music is by the band All the Kimonos. We'll be back on Monday with a look at who would stand to benefit and lose the most if the state's school voucher bill passes. Thank you for listening, and I hope you learned something new. Carly, you're going to hate me, but for some reason, my backup did not record. So I hope this audio processes.